Warning. Channel Robozoid contains adult language, adult content, strong opinions, and verbal brutality. Viewer discretion is advised.
Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow.
Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable from the words that we hear daily from so many. For example, as the First Lady of the United States pointed out this morning, just 2 days prior to the shooting, ABC's late-night host Jimmy Kimmel disgustingly called First Lady Melania Trump an expectant widow. Who in their right minds says a wife would be glowing over the potential murder of her beloved husband? And having experienced what I did with the First Lady on Saturday night, I can tell you that she was anything but that. This kind of rhetoric about the president, the First Lady, and his supporters is completely deranged, and it's unbelievable that the American people are consuming it night after night after night. As President Trump said on Saturday night at this podium, we as Americans must recommit ourselves to resolving our differences peacefully and uniting around the shared values that make our country great.
Hello, it is I, the Robozoid, your semi-likable and occasionally tolerable curmudgeon of the Rumble and ScrewTube airwaves, in which once again we have to do a follow-up, of course, talking about Yona Schimmel or Jimmy Kimwit, or Kibbles and Jimmy Kibbles and Bits, who, quite honestly, let's face it, this guy is the biggest moron on the planet. He was basically Ben Stein's flunky in the late 90s, and then, of course, he became Adam Carolla's flunky in the early 2000s with The Man Show, where we're a bunch of sexist pigs looking at a bunch of women jumping up and down on trampolines while drinking beer. Yeah, that kind of stupidity. In any case, well, this is kind of a follow-up to that because, Melania Trump rarely does speak out for herself, but she actually did, and I don't know if we're going to show you if any of it's going to be featured here, but of course we did run a little bit of, that part about Melania basically looking forward to being a future widow or something like that. An expected widow was the words Yona Schimmel used. And in any case, it was supposed to be considered satire, but it's not satire when you're wishing death upon the president. And even some TikTokers know that. Just take a look.
News is that now it's not just the First Lady, it's the president who's saying Jimmy Kimmel's got to go. Not the first time he said it, not the first time that it's mattered to Jimmy Kimmel's employers. Look, you can feel however you want about the joke, but it is a joke. Did it age well? Nope. No, it didn't age well, given what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But are we really going to punish comedians? Why doesn't...
Well, he's not a comedian, he's a government jester.
Trump. How come they don't do that? Maybe it's because the audience doesn't respond well to it. Oh, yeah, it does. Gutfeld does well. Fox is like the one outpost for the far-right conservatives. You really think Greg Gutfeld would work?
It may be satire to liberals like that, but it's still actually hateful rhetoric when you're basically making jokes about the president being dead, when you are essentially hoping that Melania Trump enjoys being an expected widow. So I think that's the part that they're missing. That's the part the left are missing. But at least he did admit that joke did not age well. Of course it didn't age well. And now there's a huge backlash against ABC, against Disney, and certainly against Yona Schimmel, or is it Jimmy Kibbles and Bits now? Because Jimmy Kibbles and Bits made an absolute ass of himself in the process. And, of course, now you've got everybody firing back at him for what he did. In a little bit, you'll actually see Bill O'Reilly chime in here, which is actually probably the most damning and maybe the best example of why this was just cheap-shotting and it was not brilliant satire. And O'Reilly would be the guy to know because, well, he's been cheap-shotted before. He's been cheap-shot at before, whatever the term is. But... Yeah, people have taken cheap shots at him. We know NPR did with Fresh Air, or should it be called Hot Air. We know that Al Frankenfrog did the same thing. And so, really, he understands exactly what it means to have cheap shots thrown in his direction. So I'm going to show you that clip now. I mean, forget anything else. I really want O'Reilly's reaction to this because even though he is no longer a part of Fox, or is it Fixed News now, or is it Fox Noise now, he really understands what this whole thing is all about and why it's got to stop. The narrative of political violence must stop. Take a look.
A widow. What is your response to Jimmy Kimmel's continued division with his platform?
Well, he shouldn't be on the air, of course. I mean, he's not a comedian. He's not a satirist. He's there to hate President Trump. Disney knows that. But Disney runs a couple operations like The View. That's all they do is hate Trump. And, the First Amendment protects them. We, the people, can't haul him off the air. But there's no reason for Jimmy Kimmel to be on there. What's the reason? I don't understand. It's not entertainment. All he's trying to do is damage the president of the United States and the office of the presidency.
He's right.
After Melania Trump saying he's going to be a widow, that was before, of course, the shooting at the Washington Hilton, but it doesn't really matter. So my question is to Disney, why are you doing this? For what? You're not making money off Kimmel. Very few people watch him. You polarize
Nobody watches
the
him.
whole country. People take it out on you when your revenue goes down. Why are you doing this?
Look, dude, you have a right to believe whatever you want to believe, and I have a right to believe whatever I want to believe. You have a right to say whatever you want to say, and I have a right to stand flat-footed in my stance and say what I want to say. We don't stand on the 3 F's round these parts: fiction, fabricated lies, and fallacy. And of course, y'all do it frequently.
Y'all.
Floyd is not coming against his First Amendment right. Jimmy Kimmel has a right to say whatever he want to say.
No, he doesn't.
He wants to say it. So do you, so do I, honey. But remember, just because you say it don't mean that you are free from consequences of what you said. You could say constantly over and over and
Oh
over
my God, shut her up.
Supporters are the scum of the earth. And then you go to your job and the owner of that company is a Trump supporter.
Enough.
You may get fired. And guess what? They have a right to do that. How about that?
Honest to God, I was getting a headache from that bullshit. I mean, you got a really good clip with Bill O'Reilly, obviously making some very good points on News Nation. And he's absolutely right that this was not satire and it was not funny. And you know what? Free speech has its limits. And you know something? Yona Schimmel should have considered that. Then you have this creepy, ugly, nappy-haired fool basically interrupt and go on and on with the, Jimmy Kimmel, you got the right to say whatever you want to say because, we got free speech in California. It's a free, very liberal state. All that incomprehensive nonsense and bullshit that I can't stand. That's why I had to shut the bitch up. And speaking of shutting idiots up, let's cut to this scene here with none other than Big Baldy himself, and that would be Hakeem Jeffries, one of the biggest fools I've ever seen, one of the biggest losers ever. I mean, this bastard is basically the Senate minority leader because he's just another dumbass. And of course, well, being a minority, I guess the job fits him well. Take a look.
President Trump is calling on Jimmy Kimmel to be fired by ABC due to a joke that he made. I mean, you might have seen this. I mean, what's your take on this?
My view generally is that, of course, political violence should be denounced across the board. It has no place in the United States of America, whether it's directed at the left, the right, or the center. Everybody needs to take the temperature down.
Fuck you.
So are you telling Jimmy Kimmel he needs to take
with
the
respect
temperature down?
to Jimmy Kimmel, I haven't seen the comments that prompted Donald Trump.
Well, of course you haven't.
Kimmel made a joke calling Melania
You
Trump
bald-headed stooge, you self-imposed slave.
Show, and now, of course, after what happened this past weekend, Trump is saying he should be fired.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that Jimmy Kimmel can speak for himself. The notion that Jimmy Kimmel should be fired I mean, everybody needs to take the temperature down.
Shut up. Just shut up. What about you and your hateful rhetoric and your wanting to commit violence and probably even kill Republicans, like President Trump himself? And I believe you also said that Kristi Noem needed to be hunted down and killed. You've been basically preaching political violence against conservatives and Republicans and those like us who voted for Trump. So shut your goddamn hypocritical mouth, you phony baloney, you Senate minority, self-imposed slave you.
Right? So we can get to a place where we can...
You know what? You could be shot yourself and nobody would give a damn. Nobody would care. Jesus. Yeah, I can't stand guys like this. I hate guys like Hakeem Jeffries. He's one of the worst of all time. How this bastard ever actually got into politics at all is something I'll never know. Again, that ranks up there with the mystery of the lost city of Atlantis. But nevertheless, no, Yonah Schimmel did not have the right to make jokes like that. You don't wish death on your enemies, just because you disagree with them politically. Let's say they're not enemies. Because, you know what, they're really not enemies, but in their delusional minds, they treat Trump like he's the enemy. They treated Kristi Noem like she was the enemy. They did the same thing with Pam Bondi. And, of course, they do this with all Republicans. The Democrats are the ones who always wish death on Republicans. I mean, you had Baldy Boy himself in with the sunken-in eyes, who was actually saying that he was going to personally kill Kristi Noem. And that's not an exaggeration, because let's face it, he said these people need to be hunted down. So, it's tit for tat then, I suppose. You are the biggest moron on the planet, Hakeem Jeffries, if you actually think that Yonah Schimmel, Jimmy Kibbles and Bits, is actually funny and actually a comedian. The joke's on you, scumbag. And you are a scumbag, Hakeem Jeffries. I hope you get voted out of office. And you know what? I hope your kids, if you have any, grow up to be carnival geeks or car thieves. Because you know what? The way you teach them, the way you teach young black kids, they're going to be heading in that direction, you bastard. So, yeah. Let me just say this in conclusion. I gotta cool my temper down because it could make my blood pressure rise, and that could do some bad shit to my new heart. So let me just say this, okay? No one should wish death on any politician. The opposition shouldn't wish death on the oppositions, like the conservatives. No one should be doing this, and whatever Yonah Schimmel did, he's not entitled to free speech if it goes too far. There are consequences and limits to those things. Sort of like you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, unless the theater really is on fire. Or basically you can't yell wolf in a crowded theater the way that senile Nancy Pelosi actually put it. In any case, you shouldn't be wishing death on your political opponents just because you don't agree with them. That's childish, stupid, and you could wind up in prison for it. This has been the Robozoid saying, that's food for thought, and you think about it, Yonah. You think about it, Yonah Schimmel. You think about it, you baldy schmuck. You stupid chicken skin bastard. That's all I gotta say about Hakeem Jeffries. Be here or be absolutely nowhere else.